Okay, so welcome back to part 4. We're wrapping up this particular episode with a look at how to build the world's most advanced Christmas tree bauble. So we're going to have a look at the Webserver code now. Okay, so let me get over to here. And let me see on Thonny. Let me just stop that. In fact, I'm going to go over to this one for a second, and we're going to have a look at the Cheerlight Bauble code. I'm just going to close that and open it again because Thonny's decided to be a bit awkward. There we go. Right, so this has got even more in it than the previous one. So we thought Cheerlights had quite a bit of code. This one has got even more. So we're bringing in the Wi-Fi config. This is, again, just to connect to the internet. Similar with these async IO and requests. They're just to grab for Cheerlights. We're also using Few from Pimoroni, which is their really small web server library, which is fantastic for doing anything to do with web servers. We're also bringing in the templating, render template things, so we can build templated HTML files and have them display on our Christmas tree bauble, which is just nuts, isn't it? A Christmas tree bauble with a web server built in it. We're going to then bring in machine.pin, which is the to switch the Pico LED on off. We're going to bring in the plasma and plasma stick so we can do stuff with the RGB LEDs. We brought in time so we can do some sleeping and things. Now we're also bringing in something called patterns. Now patterns is simply just all the demos that you've just seen in one file. So we have one for doing single colors, we've got one for doing MQTT broker connections, we've got one for doing Cheerlights, one for doing that sort of spinning thing. They're all in there. So currently I'm just using the Cheerlights and the spin one. I've actually created a class for each of them just so that they can hold on to their local variables if they're doing various different spinning things and we want to check in real time as the user decided to switch to a different mode. We're also bringing in threads. So threads enable us to run two programs at the same time on our Pico. And the reason we want to do this is we want one handling the web page and the web server part, and we want the other one doing the LED flashing part. And we want them to sort of cooperate but run independently. So this is where this gets a little bit funky, and it's kind of working and kind of a bit funky at the same time. And this is because the thread support in MicroPython, I understand, is experimental, and the Few library from Pimoroni is also kind of beta version, so it's pretty good, but I find that I have a few issues, and it's probably just a combination of all these things together. Right, so let's have a quick look through all the bits and pieces we have here. So I've got this thing called status. I'm going to use this as the kind of switch between what mode are we currently in. Are we in Cheerlights mode, spinny thing mode, or something else? MQTT mode. We've got the Pico LED, we're just using that for the Cheerlights bit in a minute. I've created two classes, one called Cheerlight and one called Spin. They're simply that code that we've seen previously, but with just a few local variables just to help us manage that. We can have a look at those in a minute. And then I've got this piece of code that's called Do It. So we pass in the LED strip, we pass in the spin and the cheer values that the objects that we're currently using, and because this is going to be run in a thread, we need to do some thread safe things. We need to lock and unlock whenever we're checking the status, because if that status changes and we're mid checking it, funky things can happen. We then just print out there's a thread running in the background and whatever the current status is, and we set a variable called count to 0. Again, this is just kind of a work in progress, so there's a few funny things in here you might not need. Again, we're going to lock this. This is one of the areas where I found a weirdness with MicroPython. I'll have to talk to Matt and the team about this. If I access a variable status in this part of the loop, in this part of the function, I can grab it. When I'm in the while true loop, if I try and say s equals status here, it doesn't think status exists, and that's really weird. So it should persist within this local function, and it doesn't do. So this is why I put things into classes to try and make them remember what they are and what they have. We then just print out more statuses. We then say if the current status is in Cheerlights, or Cheerlights is the current status, then we want to do some Cheerlight stuff. Again, we're just locking and unlocking just to make sure things work properly. If the status is spin, then we do the spinny thing. I've not put them in the lock and unlock on that particular one just because I was experimenting more with the Cheerlights thing. And then the MQTT one, not really got that one working yet, if I'm honest, so that's why that one isn't included in the the bit above. Otherwise, if it's just online, then we just do the spin thing. And then we create the D-lock, which is this threading thing which enables us to stop a piece of code. So if this is running off on the second core, we want the first core to sort of not change anything on that variable while the second one is doing something on it, and that's what the lock is to do with. It's called mutual exclusion, mutex. So that's what we're using the lock for. And then do stuff, we're going to start a new thread and run that do it code, which is up here on the second core. Okay. We've then got the status handler that we had before, which is just managing the connection to Wi-Fi, and then we've got some few pieces of code. So these are basically going to listen on the browser, on the web server that we're running. So if anything gets passed to /, we can then render the template index.html, which we've got copied over here. And it's very similar to the Billy Bass fish project that I did, just because I recycled that index.html because it works fine. If we do /cheerlights, then we can set the status to cheerlights. We can print out that the status is changed to cheerlights, but we can still just return that regular index.html and pass the variable called status, so we can print that on the web page itself. Similar with MQTT, we can change the status to MQTT and then output that there. And then finally with the spin, we can do the same again. We've then got some pieces of code which just, it's a catch-all piece. If you pass it a URL it doesn't recognize, it can just return back not found, so your browser actually gets a response back rather than just nothing happening. We've then got the code for setting up the Wi-Fi, and then finally running the web server. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this code. Now, it has been a bit funky, this one. Like I said, it doesn't always work the way I want it to. So if I click run, let's see what happens. So it's connecting to the Wi-Fi. It has connected to the Wi-Fi. It's now doing its little count function. And if I grab my phone and I try and connect to the web page, let me just see if I can get that to work. 1.104. So can you see now where it says it's rendered the header, the footer and the index, and I can actually see on my phone that that has actually come through. So I can now change the mode to MQTT by pressing the MQTT button. You can see the status has changed to MQTT. The thing has stopped spinning. If I change the mode back to spin, it should then set the mode back to spin, and this is where it gets a little bit funky, because I think what's happening now is it's just stopped the web server from running properly. So it's got a bit of work to be done on this one, and I will get this working eventually. So it's similar to the Billy Bass thing. I'll show you what the web page looks like. If I just stop and start this code again, let's just do that. Might be easier for me to unclick, plug it back in. And Thonny sometimes crashes as well, which doesn't help. There we go, right. So let me now just run that code again. And when it's connected, there we go. So it's got the web server started. I'm going to go over to Safari. I'm going to type in 192.168.1.104. There we go. Right. So I can now see this is the web page coming from the from the Christmas Tree Bauble. So we can see that the current color is white, which is it isn't actually doing anything with that current color currently. We can see the status is online. If I click the MQTT button, we shall see that the status has now changed to MQTT. And if I go back over to that page there, you can also see that the RGB LED has stopped spinning round. So the web page does work. It's the code underneath it that actually does the interaction between the threading piece and Vue. I'm not sure if Vue uses any of the threads as well. Something there isn't quite playing nicely, so it seems to just choke up at that point. So if I go back to Thonny, you'll see that it's just printing infinite amounts of that status thing on the screen, and we get that little spinning wheel of death, which you can't see on there. Cool. So that's the web server as it is currently. It's a work in progress. By Christmas, I'll have this working perfectly, I promise you. Okay, so if you haven't joined me on Discord already, you need to get yourself over to kevsrobots.com/discord and just join there. It's completely free, and you can join our growing community of people. It's quite active. There's quite a few people sharing what they're building and so on, and also helping each other out with various different issues that people might have. Particularly if you've got any code that you've you've got from one of my videos and you've got an issue, this is the best place to resolve it. You can also follow me on social media. So I'm all over Instagram at Kevin McAleer. I'm on Twitter as well, while it still exists at Kev's Mac. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm also on TikTok. You can see on the bottom of this, just underneath me there, Kevin McAleer 6 on TikTok, and we've had a few successes there. There's one video that's got over like 60,000 views now, which is just nuts, and I think it's just one of the robot ones. I don't know why that particular one took off and others didn't, but it is what it is. What else we got on here? And yeah, if you want to support the show, you can do that by hitting the thanks button underneath YouTube if you're watching this on replay. If you're watching this live now, you can do a super chat. Let me switch these super chats on so that they actually work properly when you do one of those. There we go. Yeah, we're all switched on there. And yeah, you can also go to buymeacoffee.com. So you go to kevsrobots.com/coffee. There's a link there to the Buy Me a Coffee page, which some people have really generously done in the past week, and I really, really appreciate that too. And finally, if you want to join the YouTube membership program, there's also a monthly YouTube membership that you can join. And again, that just helps the channel, helps pay for all the stuff that I have to buy to make robots and so on. Of course, the supporters. So this is a growing list, and I'm really pleased that it's a growing list because it just means that we've got more support for the channel. So you can see there we've got Schultz Maker, our Schultz Maker, we've got Frank, we've got Dana Hoff, we've got Grumpy Scrambler, we have David, we've got Matt Hungerford, we've got Flavia of Dev, Patrick. Our members, we have Shemi, we have Steve, we have Thomas. And YouTube members, this is a growing number of people. So we've got Cheerlights, woohoo, thanks Hans. We have Michael, we have Fraser, we've got Bill, we've got Jose, Jeff, Johan. I'm not very good with my Spanish or Mexican kind of names, so is it Jose and Johan? And we have John Paul Jolly, and we've got Tom as well. Fantastic. Thank you everybody for helping me with the channel by supporting it in these ways. And if you want to see your name on the credits here, just head over to kevsrobots.com/credits and you can get yourself over here as well. Okay, let's go back over. Okay, so I think that's everything for the slides. So this is the point in the video. This is the point of the video where I'll say thank you so much for watching on replay, and I shall see you next time.